Hello, I am Nu-Trix, and this video will be on Cherry Audio new virtual synthesizer, software synthesizer called DreamSynth. Now, if you don't know Cherry Audio, you have to look on their website. They have a huge amount of virtual synthesizer, that most of them recreates classic, synthesizer from the past. Memory Moog, we have the 8 voice from Oberheim. This is the MS-20 basically. Oh, this one is free. That's a cool one, $0. But even if you look at the price, man, this is really affordable. Most of them are $40 or less. And they have this virtual modular package. You can start free and then add other module after that. So again, just so you understand who's behind this plugin, today they're releasing DreamSynth, which is, and I'll give you their own words, it's their loving tribute to the hybrid analog and digital synthesizers of the mid to late 80s. It draws its inspiration from landmark synthesizers such as Ensoniq ESQ1, EMU Emulator 2, the Kawai K series, and the sequential Prophet VS, which is for vector synthesis. Let's actually go right into it. Let's tour it. Let's see what it does, how it sounds, and I'll explain as we go along what is part of it. This is DreamSynth. I'm going to put it full screen. First thing, as we use it, one thing that is really cool about this is the screen, the interface itself is scalable. You can just like drag on the corner and put it the size you want, or you can go here and click on the percentage you want. And there's also something that is pretty interesting is, let's say you want it to be 100%, but you want to have more control about that section to see more about this, or you have it smaller like this, and you wish you could see more of this section here or this section. So you click on focus, and then you've got a zoom. And as you move around your mouse, you can actually move around the different section of it without having, you're basically zooming in without having a bigger screen. So that's interesting. I mean, you could have a very small section. Can you change it now? Yeah, I can still change it. And I can still see just this. So it's their own way of using the space and having you optimizing it. I'm going to close the reset here, going back to normal. So we have our full screen synthesizer. And there's one window. Everything's there. There's no switching between windows. The way they use it, everything's in front of you. I can move around and understand it. But my suggestion to them and to any synthesizer designer would be to have different colors or coding to understand that we're at different section. Like this section here would be, in my case, called the common section, because this will affect everything else, The section at the bottom here, it's the effects section. So it could be in another background color. This could have a dark background color, means that this is the effects. That could be gray. These are the LFOs, which can be assigned to anywhere because they're just like assignable LFOs to different destination. These are the 3 oscillators, which both of them have 2 sources. So there's basically cis oscillators, if you want to look at it this way. And the 3 of them, each of them, they have their own LFO. Again, you see now there's a different background here. It's easy to see, oh, this is the pitch LFO. But why don't we have different background colors to understand? So these are the source, these are the destination, these are the envelope. I don't know. It's just me. I find it very visually easy to go, oh, I want to go this way, that way. But suggestion. You have one filter, we have one envelope for the filter, and we have one envelope for the amplifier. So this is basically what it is, first glance. Now, let's understand how this works and what actually you have in it. So engine-wise, you're running a filter. It's a Oberheim style 12 dB per octave multimode filter. When you click here, you have the low pass. You can go notch, and go high pass, and go bend pass. So you basically have a low pass, high pass, and notch filter or a bandpass all into one. So it's very powerful on how you want the the filter to behave, but it's a fixed slope of minus 12 dB per octave. You have a cutoff, you have the resonance, the envelope modulation amount, and the key tracking amount being sent to this. Now, I'm going to go back to explaining all these controls because there's a massive capacity of modulation in this synthesizer. It's almost modular in a way when you think about sources and destination. But one thing you need to understand from the start is this is actually two synthesizers into one. You have the big one that you see, oscillator 1, 2, and 3, which is the analog classic style of three oscillators combined into one mix, and one mix goes into one filter to one amplifier. Then you can go through effects, and it's going out, so we hear it. So that's the classic structure. But there's one synth that is entirely separate from the one you mostly see when you look at this, is this section here called strings. This is a string synthesizer. It's a strings synthesizer. That's what it does. It's a string machine. If I turn off the other one, if I bring the volume down of these three here, and I just bring the volume up of this one, if I play it, and I've got a simple attack and release. There's always sustain because it's a string. If I bring... Okay. And you can just turn on three different sources. Or pretty cool. That's it. That's what it is, You have, if you look at this one, let's talk a little bit about the modulation. What you have here, there's the tuning, okay? But you have on the bottom here, you've got pitch modulation. So you can say, this is at 0 in the middle. Turn on one side, it's going to be modulating plus from the source, the original value of the pitch. If you click on the pitch here, what you have is a selection of the sources you can take. LFO 1, 2, and 3, different ways it can be out of phase, comparing of when you're going to pick on the LFO. This is pretty interesting, meaning that you can send the same LFO to different places, but you want the different destination of the LFO to be at a different moment of the movement. This is interesting when you want to start creating, I would say, even rhythm. You can even sync the LFO. Let's say you sync it to a square wave, for example, and you sync into tempo, because you can give rhythm and even create a kick and snare with that if you want. That is really cool. But we'll talk. We'll go back. You've got pitch LFO. So I told you have the three LFOs are just standalone, can be assigned to anybody. But on top of that, you've got three pitch LFO that can be reused to be sent to something else at the same time that is used for the pitch. You've got the arpeggiator as a source. You've got the pitch band on your keyboard, the modulation wheel, channel pressure when you press the keys. If your synthesizer has it, you have a white noise, a pink noise, a plus 10 volt DC. This is mostly to have, I would say, drone value. So it's going to be like one fixed value, and a mono random DC. So basically random value. But, the classic is to have something like this, and I'm going to have some value here. Why don't I have anything? Oh, it's on one shot. Get rid of the one shot. None here. And you choose the shape you want. The speed you want. A little vibrato coming in. So just remember that the strings are actually a separate synthesizer from the rest of it, and you can go as far as having I would say, the main synth and the strings separate on the keyboard. So if you look at this section here, you got transpose. You can easily just transpose the whole thing, but you can also have split and layers. So you can layer the two of them. Right now it's in split. That's why we only hear this one from 24, the note 24 to the note 60. And if I play higher, I'm hearing the other one. I'm hearing this one here. I've got this one. But at 60, I'm playing the two keys, two sounds. And if I would just want to assign this, I'm going to actually click on this and see it's flashing. Just press the key I want from this key to that key. That's going to be the zone where that the synth will actually play, and the other one will be. But you can also just click on it and select which one you want. And if you want to go by note and you know which one, we'll click. I want to have 61 here, and I want here to go 127. So I mean, 61 is this one, and under 61 is the other sound. So this is, understand that you have the two of them. Now, what's cool also in this is as you work on a sound, let's say oscillator 1, you can click on solo, and then you just hear that one without having to turn off the other volume. So it's a nice little thing that we don't see often in synthesizers. We have the arpeggiator also. Before we go into the synthesis, the arpeggiator can be assigned to the synth, or the strings, or the two of them. It can be synced to tempo, and there's a range in an octave. There's a pattern you can select, up, down, up and down, key order, and random, and you can hold it so it stays as you release the key, it's gonna hold it. So classic stuff from Arpeggio, something we just expect to work the way it should be, and it's done, perfect. The LFO, you've got some choices of shapes, which is pretty cool. I would say the traditional one you see in analog synthesizer. But what's interesting here is you have a modulation here again. So you can have another source modulating the LFO1. So, and you can have your LFO being a one-shot or retrig. One-shot means it's going to play once and stop. So it's basically like a simple envelope because it plays one shot. Retrig, it means that it's going to always, every time you press a key, it's going to start from the zero or the neutral value and do the movement. So it becomes an LFO that is always triggered the same place. So it's almost like, again, another envelope, but that is cyclic, but it starts at the same place. Whereas if you turn them off, it's always in the move. And when you press a key, it's going to get it where it is. So it depends on what you're doing with your LFO. If you want to use it like something that is always doing the same movement, like a pitch glide at the start of your note, you might use this as a one-shot retrig, and you would have your gliding to get to the note, kind of ooh, and it would work. But I often use it, let's say, on my filter, so I have some movement in the filter. It's not always stable, or I can assign to some part of the pitch or the tuning of something that is synced to the first one. So then I want it to be free running for that type of job. So it's very simple. It does the job. It's there. You can have a bias, so the LFO can be positive or negative. So it means it's going to be, usually it vibrates around the neutral value. It can be over this or under this. So it would change basically the range where it's going to be affecting your destination. Pitch LFO, you have, again, an LFO, which is a sine wave. You have how much of modulation wheel will affect this. So a lot of people would actually want to bring up the modulation wheel to bring, let's say, vibrato only when they want. So then you would say how much you want this to be only when the modulation wheel is pushed. So, which is pretty logic. And you have the speed, and you can, again, you can sync it. But that's really just for the pitch. But again, if you don't assign it to this, it still could be used for something else, because you can still go in here and say, I want to use the pitch LFO as a source somewhere else. That's why I'm saying it's still very modular in this approach, which is pretty cool. Let's actually focus just on this. This section is the oscillator section. You've got the tuning, you've got the two pitch modulation. So why two? Well, my way of approaching this would be to say, if I want to have a pitch that changes, like gliding, so that would be like 1. And if I want to have some vibrato, that'll be the other one. So I would need two sources to come in and control the pitch in two different ways. There's the octave. So basically, let's say I'm going to pick another sound. Let's say I pick analog pulse, for example. So if you look at the different synthesis you have in this, or sources, you have in here analog or virtual recreation of analog synthesizer sources, so oscillators, pulse, ramp, sawtooth, saw. Well, this is nice. They're really nice. Then you have 430 waveform that they have samples. So PCM sound are in there that you can just. So that's why they say it's a mix of analog stuff you can play and PCM based, the synthesizer of the late 80s, early 90s, PCM based synthesizer. So bring that up a little bit more. So there's a lot of them. There's FM sample bass. And you can just go through them and decide which one. So these are the raw source you can play with. And again, think about the fact that you have two of them. So you can actually do a mix. This one, this one. And where it becomes interesting is you can use the modulation here to control the movement between A and B. So you can actually put it here and say, well, I'm going to take this and use LFO2, for example, and I'm going to use this. So I'm going to have. Right away, you're starting to do something interesting just by moving between the two. And that's why, at the same time, this gives you kind of the feeling that you could do something like that with a vector synthesis, because you would be, a vector synthesis was basically with a joystick moving between the volume of 4 different sounds. And you could basically move around between them. And if you use 2 oscillators, well, you can move between 4 different sounds. So this is pretty cool sound-wise, because right away, we haven't used the filter yet. We haven't used anything else. We have this, and we already have something that sounds interesting, And again, you can change the pitch. Where you have a pulse wave, you have the pulse width you can use, and again, the modulation for this. The tuning for B, if you use the tune, it's going to be assigned to A and B. If you unclick this and you detune this one. So this, oh, wait a sec, that's interesting. Let's say I want to make a fat super saw type of sound. I'm going to take 2 sawtooth, put it here. This is pretty neat. That's one. That's the other one. Pretty cool. Okay. So it means that this one, if you turn the tune B off, it's going to be always following the key that you're playing. Whereas if you turn it on, it's going to be detuned with the same value as the wave A running. Cool. Then you have the sync. Say 3 can be synced to 1. So oscillator 3, let's select something. Let's say something again that is very obvious, a pulse wave. And we're going to bring some movement in here and say when I have the LFO, okay, so if I bring the volume up. hear it. If you turn it off, you just hear this pitch going up and down. Turn it on. Then there's the pulse width we just said. There's a panning with the modulation. There's a level with the modulation. So if you want to do tremolo, that's where it's going to be happening. Little differences between the 1, the 2, and the 3. You have glide on all of them, key follow on all of them. You have sync on the first one only. You have filter bypass. So you could say my second one doesn't go to the filter. It goes straight to the outputs. Same thing with the third one. There's also something interesting for the third one. You have a low. So if you put it at low, it becomes another LFO because this is also a source. So same thing with here. If you put it at low, it becomes another LFO. And that's why when you go at different places and you click here, you can also use LFO3 and it has some logic to it. LFO3 becomes a fourth LFO that can be assigned to anything. So something that you have in a lot of analog synthesizers, but the difference now is that if you select that, the shape of your source could be anything. It could be a piano, it could be a string noise, it could be a synth wave. There's so much stuff that there's voice, there's wind instrument, there's single cycle sound. There's like one cycle that plays over, like a digital cycle. There's a one-shot sound. There's a bunch of like clap, kick, hard kick, a lot of different percussive sounds. So now it can be them that becomes the LFO. So it can be really weird. So this is interesting. It just opens up to a different thing because any sample can be these are sample, not yours, but the one they put in can be used to be an LFO. Pretty fun. I'll put that down for now. And then you have your filter, cutoff, resonance, notch, low pass, band pass. So if you turn it, let's go back to hearing this one, the first one we had. You have this. Sounds really round and nice. It's a 12 dB per octave, which is not bad, but I wish I had the option of 12 or 24, but that's a personal choice. But still, I like the roundness of it and the resonance. Actually, if you put it to the maximum, it doesn't scream. Still has that roundness to it, which is really nice. Envelope modulation, key follow tracking, and again, all of them can be modulated. So it's really, like I said, modular in a way. And same thing as we talk for the pitch, you can have the cutoff frequency being controlled by two sources. I personally love to have the envelope assigned here. So we hear the sound coming up and down. Let's say we wanted to have okay, then we assign the LFO to it. Maybe 2 is too fast. Let's put it at 3. When you stabilize into the sustain, you have that movement. So, which I like. I mean, it's what you expect, but the fact that you have all of these being assignable makes them really alive. Same thing with the filter. This is for the filter envelope. Then you have same thing with the VCA, but then the VCA, it's a tactic key sustain release, and the velocity, how it's going to respond to it, like this one. All of this, when it's done, you can go through the effects. You've got distortion, and you can say it's going to be just on the strings or just on the synthesizer, and you can select a couple of options like the tube, the grunge, the fuzz, the sample crushing, the tone and level. And then when you change them, some of these options sometimes turns off. Like you go into grunge, you have this, it's going to tone and level. The drive does not exist anymore. You're just toning it. Sampling crush, then you can actually bring up the level of it. I actually turned it up. So that's for this. Same thing with the phaser, synth strings. Same thing with the mod effect, which is basically chorus flanger and rotary speaker. You have the delay, stereo delay, tape delay, and you have the options. Again, what's interesting is a lot of it's modular. You can send control to this. So you can send LFO to the feedback, LFO to the spread, LFO to the mix. So you can bring, I personally love that approach. It just gives you a lot of options, especially if you want to use it in the really rhythmic pattern and have delay come in only on, I don't know, the second part of your rhythm. Really interesting. Reverb, same logic again. The options here, there's the galactic, which is like a huge, humongous. Let's try this. You'll see. Put it on the synth. Stamping. Let's try another one. Spring. Let's try room. So that's it. You've got these options. And we got the master band range for the pitch bend, the tuning, a limiter. Sometimes it's useful. Master volume and an analog drift. So if you wanted to drift like an old analog synthesizer, you can bring it. It's just a personal choice at that point. This is the synthesizer. This is what I'll do now. I'm actually going to show you some of the sounds so you understand how powerful this is. I'm going by. So you have these traditional, I would say, PCM-based classics type of sounds. But I'll also want to show you the different, let's say, basses, you know. This is great. I really love that. I love to be able to press on a key and just switch it, and then you go, well, actually they do have it. If you press on command and the arrows, you can actually switch between the sounds. Okay, so again, deep bass, really nice. But what I'll do now, I'll show you something that I was really surprised to have, is you have these things called rhythms. And the first one shows you what you can do with it. Listen carefully. One key. You go, okay, there's no sequencer in this. How do you do this? And that shows you how powerful this thing is. What you have the synth using the arpeggiator. You actually listen to the string also. If you bring up the volume of the string, you're going to hear it. So that's the string. Let's say you don't want it, you just want a drum. Turn it off. Okay. How do you do drums in here? Well, first of all, you've got, if you turn off the arpeggiator, what you're going to have is, you're just going to have some, see, you're kind of getting between notes. So what's happening is you have the arpeggiator to trigger these things. Let's turn off the effects also. I don't want a delay for now. I don't want anything else. I just want to hear that sound. So what do we have? We have this one here that we hear. So we have machine hat. It's actually playing here. Okay, again, we hear this one because there's a modulation coming from LFO3 that is this one. It also controls other things. This one also, you know, this is LFO2. If you don't want this, then you just have this one playing. And you have this one playing. So what it means is that this one is actually using LFO2 to play, and this one is synced to a quarter of a note. It's a square wave, and it's the arpeggiator is actually re-triggering this. If I move, this is LFO1. I've got the snare on the other one. So it switches between the volume here. The LFO2 is switching between kick, snare, and the arpeggiator is triggering kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. So that's why you have it. If you change this, another one, change the pitch. So it is amazing that you can actually do this because you're actually using the arpeggiator to trigger the different sounds, but you're changing between kick and snare on this one. So you understand you can actually take this and just rebuild the one you want, but it is really fun. I'm surprised how deep, how complex you can do something with a very, it's just it's not just a synthesizer, but it doesn't have a sequencer, but you can still create that type of backing track basically. And of course, you can create other stuff that is more, And again, you still have the feeling you got a kick and a snare, plus your bass. And you can double that with another kick somewhere else, and then. So I like the feeling, the reaction, the sound of it. It's really interesting. I would love to be able to assign just one oscillator to an effect instead of just the whole synth or the strings, to have oscillator 1, 2, and 3, or click synth and then say bypass effects. So I would have, let's say, this one on the delay and this one on the reverb and this one dry, kind of having this separately. That would be really, really awesome. And I think you can do it. I really believe you can do it. But that's it. I find it really efficient, cool. And on top of that, just to give you a little bit more information about here, you've got the MIDI. You could just click MIDI learn. You select the button you want to control. You move a button on your device. If it receives it, it's going to assign it to this. Can I actually send something here? No, it's not attached to this. But I mean, you just assign it, stop, and it's assigned. You can just use your synthesizer as a source to modify one knob, and it's pretty cool. And if you don't have a keyboard, you can have a little keyboard on the screen to play with. and the Q, that's it. So example of what I did very quickly for fun. So that's the same thing as we said earlier. That's the backing track without the synth playing. If I turn, this one is the bass. It's just nice, round. It's just very analogish sounding. Okay, I got this one. Then I'm gonna move to this one. I'm adding this one now. That's it. Hope this is actually useful. I hope it gives you a better idea of what it can do, what it cannot, what it is, and how to actually use it. So you take the sound, there's a bunch of sound really cool to play with, but you can tune them, tweak them, make it your own, and start from the good ideas that you have there, and then build your own stuff and have fun. That's it. Have fun. See you soon. Make more music. Cheers, guys.